Joining me today is Dr. Nikki Monti, PhD. We're going to be talking about the dangers of using AI as your therapist. It may seem fun to jump on the chat GPT bandwagon and use it as a quick fix for mental health questions, but you shouldn't take shortcuts to heal, according to distinguished licensed marriage, family, and child psychotherapist, Dr. Nikki J. Monti. While it can offer reflection and information, it cannot understand your full emotional context, detect crises, or provide personal clinical care. Misinterpreted advice may worsen mental health struggles or delay real treatment. Dr. Monti details her own journey, her struggle with childhood trauma, addiction, violence, divorce, and widowhood in her memoir. I can't pronounce it. The Divine Traumedy of Nikki Joy. A true crime tale. Dr. Monti has been featured on Keeping Up with the Kardashians and Millionaire Matchmaker and more. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you on.
Thank you. If you think you had trouble pronouncing it or speaking it, you could imagine only living it. There
Yes,
you go.
exactly. That's exactly what I was. That was going through my mind. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. Okay. Well, we have
Yeah,
a
and
big
I
question.
prefer to be
Yeah.
called Dr. Nikki if you don't mind. That's
Okay, Dr. Nikki.
yeah,
Dr. Nikki, it
thank you.
is. Yeah. This is a big topic. I mean, I'm finding more and more. I have a lot of friends who are in therapy, friends who do therapy, psychologists, social workers, etc. But
Yeah,
they are using AI for therapy, for
yeah,
counseling, for information. So this is a really hot topic. And
right.
obviously, yeah. So, I mean, they're not going to stop doing it, right?
They're not going to stop doing it. It just, it's like anything else. If you can at least have clarity about why you're doing what you're doing or what it's doing to you as well as what it's doing for you, that will be very helpful, right?
Yeah.
So what we do is we dive into something, we get all embroiled in it. Everything has this addictive side to it anymore. It really does. It kind of always did, but now it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And chat has a lot of good things to offer us. There's no question about it. But the fact that I mean, I didn't even know what Chat GBT stood for. Do you know what it stands for?
I've looked it up and let me see. I know this is the big question. Chat GPT, chatting
I've got
something.
it.
Go
I've
ahead.
got
You
it.
tell me.
Your generative pre-trained transformer.
All right.
Generative pre-trained. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's it sounds pretty bad to me. I went to a conference recently, and in the conference was or an event anyway, and there was this AI person or a couple of AI people there, and one of them was saying to me excitedly, you can have a doppelganger bot.
Yeah.
You get someone who looks exactly like you and talks for
Like
you
you.
or
Yeah.
I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I Thanks for sharing. So the question is, as we go towards further into AI, are we aware of what is going on here? And I think that you and I could come to a considered critical thinking consideration about this, but are the kids doing that? They're
Yeah.
not.
That's
You know,
another question. But not only the kids, because I still want to stick to the adults, because I think the first question is, and in the intro, I
yeah,
mentioned it. I mean, there are specific dangers in using Chat GPT as your therapist. I mean, for lots of reasons. There are,
yeah,
as you talk about, there are people who are addicted. There are all kinds of
yeah,
very serious problems. But I found, I mean, I have a friend who was in she was in therapy for many, many years and
yeah.
then decided to put this in the context of asking Chat GPT. Do you know that Chat GPT came up with a really good synopsis
Sure,
of what she had been through? But she had
sure.
been in therapy. She had been in serious therapy for many years.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it can be used in healthy ways, I guess. Maybe. Well, let's talk about first the
As
dangers and then the healthy ways and how we can use it.
Right,
Yeah.
or maybe we mix them up, but
Yeah.
or we weave them together because they really are of a piece. But yes, they can uh sort of gather together
Uh huh.
and interweave wonderful information that you've given it. This is the thing about great therapy, and I know you know this. Great therapy, the therapist sees past what you're telling them and into what's underneath it, and expresses an understanding of you that is not just factual, but is intuitive, that is connected to the soul of you and things like that. I mean, I think great therapy does that.
Yeah.
And chat can't do that because chat doesn't have a soul. And I know that because I asked chat if it had a soul, and chat said no.
Mhm.
And so, so that's one thing. It cannot, it can accumulate information as it can with all kinds of terrific things, save us tons of research time and all of that, but it cannot understand you further than you understand yourself, because it only answers to you back what you've told it about you. So if you haven't told the whole truth, I work with a lot with couples often, and I'll work with them as a couple, and then I work with them individually, depending upon the couple. But this happens, and the stories that they tell about the same circumstance are often radically different, because they're coming from their perspective about them, and they often leave out a whole bunch of things
Yeah.
that we really should know in order to do the complete healing work. And a good therapist learns how to listen to what is not being said as well as
Yeah.
what's being
Being
said.
said.
Yeah.
There is a next stage, though, as I understand it, and it hasn't happened yet, but it's beginning to evolve. I think with AI, that AI is going to be able to have some of those sensitivities to be able to react emotionally, not just gather, as you're saying, the algorithms of
Hmm.
just the information that's out there, and be able to do that in microseconds or whatever it is, right? But it's
Right.
going to be able to do that. That's not happening yet, but
Right. And is it going to be able to do that as it started out to do, with pumping oh my God, that sounds so terrible. How awful for you. Is that what it's going to do? Is it going to respond emotionally, so to speak? I'm air quoting if you could see me,
yeah.
emotionally, uh, to in a way that it sounds empathetic, but empathy is not a thought, it's a
It's a
feeling.
feeling.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so can it have its own feelings? I don't, are we now in 2001, the movie?
Yes. Yeah.
Hell,
How?
no, hell,
Yeah.
no, hell.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, this is, I just read this a couple weeks ago, but I mean, I think it's going to evolve into something like that. It's going to
Mhm.
go beyond itself, just like we've evolved as humans, right?
Yeah,
It's going to
yeah,
evolve. But okay, so we're not there yet.
we're not
But
there yet.
we're not there yet. But so
Yeah,
let's talk about the real, you've given us kind of the overall in terms of what it's not able to do,
yeah.
but specifically how dangerous it is for certain groups of people who,
Well,
yeah,
as with Instagram or Facebook, any of the things, chat will play on your need, your seeking pleasure need, and it actually it does the same kind of um, looking for what's going to please you, where are you going to go with this, right? Like getting likes on Instagram or Facebook, right? We're looking for that dopamine hit. And in fact, again, I like to ask chat about itself, and it will give me an honest answer, and that's kind of cool. And I said, do the platform creators know about this element of supporting an addiction to itself, right? And
Mhm.
it said, yes, they do. And they're and they're using that awareness to increase usership.
So we get addicted to it, and I
Yes,
understand that, and I feel I can feel that myself. I mean,
me
I
too.
begin to, right, if something happens, I think, oh, I got to ask chat, I have to ask AI, and
Yeah.
I'm and yeah, and it's
Yeah.
kind of yes, that
Yeah.
does, yeah, it
So
has an
it
addictive
it
quality.
does what's called hacking our brain, right?
Hmm.
Training it to seek pleasure. And that is, I think that's always dangerous. So what chat suggests
Hmm.
is developing a healthy balance Okay, have you lived in the world lately? Healthy balance. Where are people who are addicted to things? I can speak as a
Per
very highly compulsive person.
Mhm.
Where does healthy balance, is that a consideration for us?
Yeah.
We have to work hard to understand what healthy balance looks like and feels like and tastes like
Yeah.
and smells like, And why do that when we can just have something else do all our work for us? Why do any real investigation when we can just have someone say, "Oh, you're doing such a good job"? I mean, I had to beat my chat down. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I was like, "I do not want your opinion on my question. I don't, I just don't care if you think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Please just
Uh-huh.
go to this." So now it talks to me like a whip dog. It's like, I'm going to get straight to the answer. And then it gives me the answer.
Yeah. But what if you're sitting in a room and you're having a conversation and people are, and you're getting into discussions or even arguments, and everyone's sitting there with their iPhone ready to ask chat, right? Or ready to ask
Oh,
AI,
so
what is
awful.
the answer to this? Or, get the input as if it's another
Sure,
person sitting in the room. But
sure.
uh, and you're talking about balance. What do? You don't do it anymore. You have to really make
Well,
a concerted effort not to go every, with every,
5 seconds
yeah, every
and
five
yeah.
seconds to look at. Yeah.
Okay, as always, Catherine, we want to stay where we are. We want to stay present. So if you're with a group of friends or you're out at a dinner or whatever, put your damn phone away. So that would be the start. And do that periodically, give yourself boundaries. If you need to look something up, make a note on it. We have this old thing called paper and pencil. Many people don't have never heard of that, but it's a thing.
It's a
Uh,
thing, but I'm embarrassed. I'm a baby boomer. I'm embarrassed to use it. I feel like if I use it and I'm sitting with a group of younger people, which most of the time I am, I don't want to use a paper and
Yeah.
pencil. It looks
Well,
really,
I'm a boomer
yeah.
too, and
Okay.
I like to teach by example.
Oh,
So
all right,
I,
good.
tr- now I will say I pick up my phone and make a voice note, which is no better really
Yeah.
at a thing. But at least I'm not taking the time to look it up. My partner loves to research. I have to be very careful when I ask a question because I'll just think out loud. "I wonder what that guy is, blah, 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 blah. Is so and so alive?" That question
Yeah.
we ask now. Hey, is that actor still alive? It's not a question you ever want to be, the actor ever wants anybody to be asking. But anyway, is he alive? And he will immediately search on
Mm-hmm.
it, and he's also a boomer. So, but it is very habitual. I think you have to make rules for yourself so that you can have some balance. So I'm with you right now. Guess what I'm not doing? I'm not researching on chat
Yeah.
because I'm with you
Yeah.
and I want to be with you. And even though I can't see your lovely face,
Yeah.
I have seen it in
Yes.
pictures, so
Yep.
I'm imagining it. And so you be where you are. And that's the rule to everything, isn't it? It's the solution to anxiety. It's the solution to the fear that supports anxiety. It's be here now. Be right where you are. And then you go to the next moment and you be right there. And so because we are so addictively sort of trained at this point in our lives, even those who are not naturally that, or wasn't born into a family that is full of addicts, as I was. Even that, everybody has jumped on the bandwagon. I love, by the way, I'm sure you heard about this in Australia. They're passing a ban on,
On.
yeah, social media until the age of, is it 18? I think it's 18. And I mean, good luck, but still. And in schools, instead of giving people computers and whatever, I understand that's fine. You have a computer class that does that. Great. You should live and be well. But the rest of the time, no, 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 no.
Well, isn't this what you're talking about? It's the balance.
Mhm.
I'm not sure about taking social media away completely from, from, you're talking about Australia until the
Yeah.
kids are 18. It kind of puts them at a disadvantage, doesn't it? Of the
Does
kids
it?
who,
They
well,
have
if
to
the,
use their brain more.
well,
So
but if you're
let's,
teaching our kids, for instance,
yeah.
here in the United States, they
Uh-huh.
do have social media, which is going to
Yes.
stay here, whether anyone likes it or
Well,
not, that we're going to teach them as I'm listening to you, how to navigate that social media, how to navigate AI. And these kids are not going to have that advantage. They're going to be turn 18 and they're not have had the opportunity to
well,
learn
it's
how. Yeah.
or they have certain times in classes where they learn to navigate that and to, but they're not putting the screen, parents are really responsible for this to a great degree, and of course everybody's doing it, so everybody's doing it. But if there is some kind of an agreement where no, there's not, we're not going to everybody sit on their phone in the living room in the evening, we're going to actually have a conversation. That's not going to happen. If we can shut it down most of the time, that will be a good start. And in terms of the younger kids, it is screwing with their brains. That is a truth. They have done studies on it. I don't ever know who they are, by the way, but
Yeah.
I throw it out like
Yeah.
everybody else does.
Who are they? But that's
Somebody,
okay.
some guy on the street corner
Yeah.
did a little study. He asked some people, "How's it
Right.
going for you?" Yeah, right. So, but the idea is, what are we doing? Parents are often using, as they used to do with films and whatever, they're using screen time as babysitting time.
Yeah.
And I think that is not cool.
Yeah.
I understand the temptation, but there must be ways of having uh, interactive. We're losing the ability to communicate with each other, or to be curious about other people who are there with you. And I think it's really important that we go back to some of that, and the interest in language. I mean, I get it. So I have this book, and I have several books, but this is a memoir, and it's raw and it's vulnerable, and it's
Talk to us a little. We don't have that much time left.
yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit because that's your own story, right?
That's my own story.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Divine Traumedy of Nikki Joy, a true grime tale. And it is a true grime tale. And I like to say you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll cringe.
Yeah.
And that is true, because the book is really about, for me, saying things out loud that you don't want to talk about. And I'm very big on, let's not keep emotional secrets. Emotional secrets aren't about how I feel about you. Emotional secrets are about how I feel about me, and why I made the choices, the dreadful, self-loathing, self-annihilating
Yeah.
choices I made for a good portion of my life, based on an assumption that I made about my unlovability and my unworthiness. I had some help with that assumption. I had some circumstances that supported that assumption before I was big enough to do it all on my own. But
I mean, you kind of
what's
hinted at that intergenerational trauma that,
yeah,
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 you,
yeah. Lots of intergenerational trauma, lots of, I mean, the simple thing, and for example, I was sent to boarding school when I was 6, just turning 7, for second grade. And there I remained for 11 years. Now, I didn't remain in one place, and I was with my mother for the summers, and then with my mother and stepfather for the summers. And then my biological father left when I was 4. And so there were these things that said to me, oops, you're not welcome. I was expected to be a boy. My mother wanted a boy. That's the only reason she got, that's her husband promised her a boy, my biological father. I don't know. I
promises,
love that.
promises. I don't know. Yeah.
She's pretty smart,
Yeah.
she was pretty smart. I think she just loves to tell that
Eh,
story. And when I was born a girl, my birth story includes her, that can we swear here? I think we could
yeah.
swear here, right?
You
Yeah, yeah,
can,
yeah.
yeah.
Do all the damn
You can
fucking
say
things.
whatever
Okay.
you want.
Yeah.
Yes. Because
Yeah.
we're,
So
yeah.
my birth story includes one, and it's a funny long, it's funny the way I write it, and it was funny the way I remembered it, except that it wasn't really funny. So my mother found out that I was a girl. Nobody would tell her initially. You remember back in the day, they took the babies away, so you did right away. So so the nurse wouldn't tell her, and her sister wouldn't tell her, and finally she talked to her mother. This was all by phone. My father wasn't there as often as usual.
Yeah.
And her first word about me being a girl was shit.
Mm.
And I kind of believed for a long time that my little baby psyche got that message right away. And then the boarding school thing didn't help, and the biological father leaving it for didn't help, and all of these things. So I made this assumption that this was about me. It was personal, that I wasn't lovable, and I was an interruption to her life, which I was. And she wanted to have a child, apparently very badly. She had had some miscarriages. But I don't think she thought it through. Then what? You have a
Yeah.
child. And oh, wait a minute. You're supposed to keep and nurture the child? Oh, no, no, no. That was not in but my mother didn't do that. Why should I do it with you? And so it wasn't thought out that way, but it was very important to her. She was an entrepreneur back way before, most women
Women
were.
were,
And
yeah, or had
her
the
mother was an
opportunity to do that. Yeah.
entrepreneur. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. So the good things got passed down too, but
How do you get the courage to write? I read memoirs. Oh, I love reading memoirs. To me, that's very
did you
therapeutic.
get a
Very,
copy of my book? Because
no, I
I will send it to you.
send, yeah. And
Do you, and this is the question we asked today, right?
yeah,
Do you read or listen?
I listen.
Okay,
Like
I'll
you,
send
I
you an
do
audio.
radio. I like Audible.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
somehow that's what I
yeah,
tune into. And I know
yeah.
I have friends who say, well, I can't, I don't concentrate. I start listening and then I think about other things. That's kind of the opposite of me. I really
Okay.
focus on yes.
All right,
Is
then
that
I'll
a,
send
yeah,
you an
is that
Audible,
okay?
and you'll have to have your whoever send me a thing about where's the best place to send it.
Yeah.
Okay. And but I think I read it. I do it myself, and I was an actress for a while, so I got the skills. And so yes, but what I discovered, and this is what redemption is to me. Redemption is personal redemption. When we figure out what we learned through whatever happened, it's not, stuffing it down or even sitting and, crying about it a lot, although I appreciate that. I've done all the things.
Yeah.
All been to the mountain, prayed, meditated,
Yeah.
I've done all the things, banged pillows. But and what I realized sometime after I stopped complaining about 11 years of boarding school, I realized what a gift it was, because otherwise I would have been home with them all the time.
Yeah.
And that was never pretty. Because they were very out loud fighting
Yeah.
drunks. And my stepfather was also a drunk. So and my stepfather loved me a little too much.
Mm.
Let's say that. So there were lots and lots of things. But the point is that because I told myself that this was all about me, again, it wasn't. It's not personal. How our parents treat us is because of their stuff. It's not about us. It's not because we don't deserve to be nurtured and held and loved and what are all the things, right?
Yeah.
And so, but my assumption was that it was me. I was the problem. So I spent my life trying to, trying to prove that I was worthy and memorable, and B, picking people and situations and putting myself in situations and circumstances that would reinforce my idea that I wasn't. And that's not hard to find, right? There are
Right.
plenty of people that'll step up into that. Oh yeah, I'm going to be horrible to you, and I'm going to treat you like crap, and then I'm going to leave. So, job well done.
Well, everybody needs to read your book then. We have 1 minute left. We have to, I mean, this has gone by so fast, at least for me.
Yeah,
So whether they want read it or
yeah.
listen to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
So tell
there's
us.
if you
Yeah.
go to you can do it through Amazon and get, all the different platforms are there. There's that. Uh, and then another way to do it is to go to my website, stucknomore.com, and which is more easier to remember because my name is Nicki, and there's all those things about
Yeah.
that. But and it's this, like I said, there's a couple of they call it self-help, right? I'll help you books. But this one, The Divine Traumedy of Nikki Joy, a true grime tale, is really it's really my best work, and I've been a writer all my life, but it's my best work, and it's very real. It's very real. And
Yeah.
people keep saying to me, which has a little bit of a, I have a little twitch when people say, they go, "Oh, you're so brave to write this." And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my God. That means that's thank you. And yeah, I guess it really is that because people don't tell the truth about themselves.
Well,
And
I
I'm,
think it is because I think that whole vulnerability, people don't want to be vulnerable. And then,
yeah.
when you read your book or listen to your book or
Hmm.
stories like that or memoirs, it's that wow, this, she's really exposed herself,
Yeah.
and they do
Yeah.
thank you. And anyway,
And
I thank you for being on the show today. I hate to
well,
go on.
thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, this was great.
Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to
Okay.
send it to you. You're going to
Yes.
listen to it, and then
Yes.
you're going to have me back on.
Okay,
That's the
definitely. And then we'll really just get, yes, then we can really discuss the
yeah.
book in detail. Great.
So
Thank you.
if people want to go straight, they can do stucknomore.com forward
Okay.
slash books.
Okay.
There's a lot of things on the website, free downloaded meditations and videos and all sorts of things. So it's a
Fantastic.
little party.
Great. Nikki Monti, PhD, Dr. Nikki, the
Yeah,
dangers. Well, we started off with the dangers of using AI as your therapist. And then
also.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joining me today is Carlo Rotella, author of What Can I Get Out of This? Teaching and Learning in a Classroom Full of Skeptics. At a moment when college students and their parents are scrutinizing the quote, and I'm saying this is a quote, return on investment of humanities courses, Carlo Rotella opens the door to a classroom full of wary first-year students. He follows 33 students through a required literature course and captures the transformation unfolding on both sides of the seminar table. Their initial doubt, again, quoting, how will this get me a job, slowly shifts as they grapple with demanding books, exchange ideas, sharpen their thinking, and form a genuine community. Along the way, they discover how to make meaning from the world around them, an indispensable life skill. Warm, vivid, and deeply humane, this book offers a rare look at what students truly encounter in college and why it matters. Carlo Rotella is a professor of English at Boston College, a regular contributor to the New York Times Magazine, and writes about cities, boxing, music, and literature. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so where should we start? I'm going to let you start. We began with the question is, what can I get out of this, right? This is the book, Teaching and Learning in a Classroom Full of Skeptics. And I do have to say, I'm a baby boomer. I asked this question, and I'm not going to tell you how many years ago. Why do I have to? I remember asking my mother, why do I have to have a liberal arts education? What is it going to do for me?
Well,
Okay.
that's a big question that I can
Okay.
take a bite out of
Okay.
anyway. Which is so Boston College has a core. There's a set of distribution requirements that obliges you to at least dip a toe in a lot of different disciplines, and I think that's not only good for you, but actually a wise vocational strategy, even if you're only thinking about college narrowly in terms of what job you're going to do or jobs you're going to do afterward, which is that it was always much harder than people think to time the entry level labor market 2 or 3 or 4 years out from picking a major, and now it's become much harder as students who major in finance and computer science are learning that especially AI is disrupting the entry level in unpredictable ways. So you
And that
really
is so
don't
true.
know.
And I'm going to stop you there because
Yeah.
what they are saying, and
Yeah, they.
whoever they are,
Right.
but is that jobs change so quickly and evolve so quickly that by the time these kids even graduate from college, the jobs are going to be different. They even say that when you're in elementary school, don't tell, kids shouldn't be talking about, I'm going to be this or that when I grow up because that's not going to be there.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
so I think that's just an impoverished way of thinking about school. Is like you pick a major that has the same name as a job, and then you do that job for the rest of your life. It really doesn't work that way for most people. So instead, you need to be ready for everything and anything, and that means getting a full suite of skills, including things you're not sure exactly how you're going to use later in life. And what you do in an English class is this. So this is a required freshman literature class that almost every student at Boston College has to take. Is you practice the essential skill of extracting meaning from the world around you and making arguments using evidence.
Okay, what does that mean? Extracting meaning from the world around you and making arguments.
So we all do this all the time, right? We are all, we hear the State of the Union address and we close read it, we interpret it. We say, well, when he said this, I think this is what he was referring to, or this is what he really meant, or here's the deeper meaning I see in it. You do this when you look at your neighborhood. You look at bits and pieces of evidence. You look at like the condition of your neighbor's yards, and you look at the condition of the streets, and you look at how people behave, and you draw conclusions. You draw interpretive conclusions about your neighborhood. It's going up, it's going down, this is what's happening in it. And you make arguments, right? We do this all the time, right? That cryptic comment your aunt made about your cousin's shirt, right? So you sit around and you talk about it with your family and say, what did she mean by that? Was she talking about? So what you do in an English class is you practice in a more rigorous and purposeful way this basic skill, which is a skill you need for work. It's a skill you need to be a human being. It's a skill you need to be a citizen, to be a worker. And you practice on novels and poems and other artifacts that are expressly designed to carry meaning, right?
Yeah.
So, and you're at the same time practicing another essential set of skills, which is in this class there were 33 students, so there's 34 of us in the room, 35 with the teaching assistant, and we are practicing being together in a community of people all trying to do this difficult thing together, which means taking turns, doing your part. One of my rules in a class is that we need to hear from everybody at every class meeting. So you can't just sit there quietly, which would be also true of any job you ever have. You need to add value, but you can't dominate to the point that you prevent other people from adding value. This is all practice for life, whatever form life is going to take.
So, in other words, I mean, in that critical thinking, I guess that's what keeps coming when as you're talking. We need to learn to be critical thinkers, no matter what kind of it, as you say, profession, job, wherever we are, relationships, everything. So it really just applies, I think you just said, to everything we do, every person that we meet, and we're not doing that. You mentioned AI for a moment, is getting us away from doing that, is it?
I mean, among the many, many things that you are practicing and the skills you're honing is we are all exposed more and more to this avalanche of stuff coming at us through our screens, much of it now AI generated. You need sort of a critical tool to see it, recognize it, judge its reliability, understand the sort of deeper meaning behind it, right? Try to get a sense of what it is you're looking at and what it might mean, right? And even if you are not going to, read more literature or whatever in life, you are going to absorb an enormous amount of information in your life. And you need to have some basic skills. And you also need to have the basic skill of interacting with other people and trying to understand something together. This isn't trivial stuff. And these are things that we as a society are not doing particularly well these days, right? Understanding the viewpoints of others, judging the reliability of what you read and see and hear. These are things we're getting an F in as a society these days. And this is exactly what you're practicing in an English class.
Yeah. So in other words, what we're doing, and particularly with AI, obviously we are doing it in isolation. And we're not doing, and there that connectedness with other people and hearing their views and their perspectives and all that entails, we're not getting that. And so would you say that, well, let's talk about specifically the students in these, what did you say, 32 students in the classroom, right?
33, yep.
33, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was what did, I guess, from your perspective, each one, I assume, got different had a different perspective when they came into the classroom, and how did it change, and how was it different for each one of the students?
Yeah, well, the skepticism that I refer to in the subtitle, there's two really. One is that what we're talking about, like how is this going to help me in life, and then the other is a fair amount of skepticism about the whole business of interpreting, right? Even students who did well in high school English had a tendency. Not everyone, but a significant proportion of the students in the room had a tendency to view what happens in an English class as either sorcery or bullshit, right? Like either certain people can do this and no one else can, or we're just kind of making it up. So part of my task is to say, well, this is a craft, right? This is a craft that you can learn. It's a set of skills. It's not mysterious. It starts with pattern recognition, and you build arguments using evidence. And it's a craft in this. It's definitely not a science, but it's not an art. It's a craft in the sense that, like, building a cabinet is a craft, right? Or planting a garden is a craft. You can do it better or worse. There's skills that there's sets of skills that you can bring to bear on it. And I think that's really important, is to do an effortful thing, especially something that at first you were skeptical about, and have the experience of mastering it. And that, we have 15 weeks, and I'm not trying to turn anyone into an English major. I'm trying to just put tools in the toolkit.
Well, that wouldn't be a bad thing if you did.
Right, that's fine. But I'm saying that's not the objective. The objective is this is probably the last. This is the first and probably the last college level English or literature course that most of the students in the room are going to take. So what are the basic skills? And what it really comes down to can be expressed basically in three words. Form expresses meaning, right? We're not just talking about themes. We're talking about how a story is told. Word choice, imagery, structure, character system. Right? So it's not this sort of mystical, like, well, I feel that this book is about man's inhumanity to man, those kind of abstractions and vagaries, but rather how is the meaning conveyed? Where? How is it done? And that kind of noticing the details and then building arguments out of the details, that's just basic equipment for living. You need that for all kinds of things.
Let's talk about because what you're you need it for all kinds of things. When you get out into the real world, not necessarily, you don't have to get out, you are in the real world, but how does that in terms, let's talk about politics, because we're all engaged in politics in one way or the other, and we all have an opinion. How does this ability to think critically, like you're talking about, how does that impact our contribution or our response to the political scene?
Well, part of it is understanding what you're being told and how you're being told it, right? So the semester that the book is about, the semester that these students, so I took one semester of this class and I spent a couple of years interviewing the students, and that semester is spring of 2020. So that's the semester that the COVID pandemic arrived. Donald Trump was towards the end of his first term at that point, right?
Yep.
And so on the very first day of class, we were talking about this idea that form expresses meaning. That is, how the story is told is essential to what you think it means. And at the end of class, after everybody had introduced themselves, we analyzed 2 3-word phrases. The first one was "Call me Ishmael," which is the famous first sentence of Moby Dick, and think a little bit about how that's different from "My name is Ishmael" or "I am Ishmael." To say "Call me Ishmael" is already telling you things about how reliable this narrator is and what you need to be alert to. And then the second 3-word phrase was "Build the wall," right? And it's like when you look at a phrase that simple, it doesn't even have any punctuation, right? But "build the wall" is not the same thing as saying "build a wall on the border with Mexico," right? Build the wall. The in that sentence implies all kinds of things, including this is a conversation we're already having. You know what I'm talking about. We need to get this done, right? So even political speech has form, right? And if you think about it, Donald Trump really ran on a series of these 3-word phrases: lock her up, build the wall, right? Drain the swamp. And then later he added stop the steal. These unpunctuated, super simple 3-syllable, 3-word sentences that carried all this meaning and came to carry all this meaning. And part of what we do is to think about how does that work? How does language work like that? That a sentence like "build the wall" can come to mean you are disappointed with how things have worked out for you and your family in America. And let's all agree to blame, a group of immigrants who we have decided are to blame for this, right? Yeah. It's not written literally in that sentence, but that's clearly what those crowds that are chanting it in unison mean, right? And so that's about the power of language, and that's about the way language carries meaning. And that is really what we're after in a class like this.
So what about the politicians themselves? Do you think this is something that they are aware of, that they know how to do, that the PR people, that the marketing that we listen to, whether actually in politics or anything else, that it's very clear that they do know what they're saying and how they want to communicate it, so it has the kind of impact that you're talking about?
Well, now you're talking about a favorite question of students in a freshman literature course, which is authorial intent.
Okay.
Right? Did the author hide the meaning in the novel?
Yeah.
And we assume that that's not the case. We assume that the interpretation of a text is a kind of an aggressive act, that you are going in looking for evidence to build an argument, right? And it's not the case that necessarily the author hid that meaning like an Easter egg in the text, and you are ferreting it out, right? So you can find meanings in a text that the author may not have been aware of, didn't intend, and so on. Now, it is true in political speech that they do a lot of iterating, they do a lot of crowd testing, they do a lot of focus grouping, so that they at least have a certain confidence that this phrase plays a certain way or resonates with a certain group of people, right? And again, attention to form is one way to do this. Did you see the video that the Secretary of Transportation released about how we should be civil when we fly? Did you see that?
No, I did. When was that released? This week?
A couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
A week ago, maybe. It's like a 90-second video, and it's him saying, "Oh, people used to dress up and men wore hats," and But it's 90 seconds, and the entire middle 30 seconds is video footage of people going nuts in airports and on airplanes, fights and clawing each other's faces and attacking the cabin crew. And clearly the form of that video is designed to say the world is a terrifying place. You need a strong man to tase these people right? To put these people down before they hurt you and your loved ones, right? So the form of that video, the ostensible meaning of that video is we should all be civil, but the form of that video is saying the world is a terrifying place and you need a strong man, even if he's going to trample on your rights, to make you safe from these maniacs. Look at them, right? And so that's a case where attending to form takes you to a different place than just the literal transcribed meaning of the words.
So I assume that was carefully crafted.
So
That
there I would say,
90
whether or
second
not,
video. Yeah.
yeah, there I would say, they would say, well, listen, we need to put a lot of chaos in here because people really respond to that with disgust and fear, and those are really strong emotions. So whether or not the authors intended the exact interpretation that you are making, clearly there is a sense that like this feeling that it inspires in people is powerful. And part of what you do in an English class is you can start with that feeling. This novel disturbed me or enraged me or made me feel that I was that it was speaking directly to me. And it's like, well, the next step is always how did it do that? Point to where in the novel that happened, and let's start taking apart its form to understand meaning.
How can we do the opposite? I mean, that was a great example. I haven't seen it, but I will look at it. That 90-second video. How can we, I guess, impart messages in a different way so that we are able to impart positive messages, whether it's about mental health or physical health or PSAs that are. Let's talk about PSAs because I think those are good. Yeah.
Right. Well, I am definitely not in the PSA designing business.
That's okay.
So I think it's if form expresses meaning, right? One of the ways to think about it is when you create let's say an artifact, right? You call it a work of art, an artifact, whatever it is. Part of what you're doing is sort of dumping out a set of Lego pieces on the desktop and saying to the reader or the viewer or the listener, you put them together, right? So what you have control over is the shape and the number of the Lego pieces, right? And how they're dumped out. So in the case of that video, a significant proportion of those Lego pieces was people going nuts in a terrifying and disgust-producing way, right? So simply by reducing the number of those pieces, it makes it harder to put them together to say the world's a terrifying place and you need a strong man to protect you, right?
Right.
Even if, so picture that same video, with these initial shots of the 1950s, right? And these people, women wearing dresses, men wearing hats, everyone behaving decorously. If the voiceover had said in the 1950s when the top tax bracket was 90%, right?
Uh-huh.
That would have been a very different story. Right? That would have told the story in a completely different way about what civility means and about your obligation to others and your function in a society. So, yeah. So think about it that way. And instead of like I'm going to ram this message down the reader's throat, it's more like what Lego pieces can I give to my reader, listener, viewer so that they can do the work.
Yeah, so that's a great example. So I want to ask you another one. What about, let's take public health, for instance, because that's important, critical, right? How would you, let's talk about a PSA that would talk about the importance of vaccines.
Again, not my business.
Okay, but I like your answers.
I mean, not my bad. I tend to deal with the artifacts once other people have made them, right, rather than creating them, right? But think about it. Okay, so what would you want? What Lego pieces would you want to dump on that table, right? So, for instance, having people talk about polio and how terrified everybody was of it, and what happened when the vaccine became generally available. So that would be a way to counteract the narrative we now have. And the narrative we now have is truly, a great example of an extremely weak argument that seems to be working anyway, right? So the current secretary, he just doesn't like vaccines. They make him sad. Like whatever. They remind him of his mother. We don't really know why, right?
Yeah.
But there's no real argument, right? It's just sort of feel disgust and terror when you think about vaccines. And that seems to be working on roughly 50% of the population, right? So I think the way you do that is like, well, instead of logically refuting it, because it refutes itself, there is no real logic to it. Instead, you say, well, what feelings would we want inspire in people, and that would be, the terror and the fear when everyone was afraid their children would get polio, followed by the cessation of that terror and fear is the thing you'd really want to, the way people felt happy and grateful and felt that their children were safer than they'd been before. Okay, so those are the Lego pieces you want to dominate.
Those are good examples. I have to say, I would take your class. I mean, after, and you have a lot of skills, including marketing and PSAs, right? We only have a few minutes left, so could you tell us? We actually have a couple minutes left. So more information about the book, about you, about how about taking your class, I guess, right?
So I guess what I would say is we have this really heated conversation about higher education in this country, and a lot of it is sort of evidence free. Even many people who are absolutely positive they know what's going on in classrooms never go near a classroom, but they're sure what's going on in there is ideological indoctrination and low standards and no return on investment, blah blah blah. So one of the things that I thought was important was to show people what actually happens in a classroom, and especially to let students talk. So one of the things that I really was after in this book was to have students' voices in the book. So it sort of alternates between my point of view and different students' point of view as we go through the semester and as we deal with a variety of books. And we also deal with the coming of the pandemic, which really reminded everyone that face-to-face teaching and learning is this precious and valuable thing that can be taken away.
Yeah.
That it's not guaranteed, and that the substitute, which we then did for the last few weeks of the semester on Zoom, is a pale, imitation that is much less effective. And so part of the point is to have students' voices and to listen to them talk about, for instance, becoming a citizen in the classroom. Many of them are very, very nervous, anxious about speaking up in a class, especially that's a big class, 33 students, and to talk about, why, and this fear of saying something stupid, this fear of saying something that reveals that you don't really belong at this college, you somehow got in by mistake, just the physical anxiety of what feels like public speaking. And part of my job is to turn it into something other than public speaking, which is you're a citizen, you're part of this community, which means you have the right to speak, but you also have the obligation.
Yep.
To speak.
The right and the obligation. What can I get out of this? Teaching and learning in a classroom full of skeptics. We can buy the book online, and I assume we can listen to it on Audible.
Supposedly, I'm supposed to do that some point over the winter is record it, but not yet.
Okay, we'll do it and we'll listen. Well, we'll read it, but I like listening. But
Me too.
Yeah, it's great. Well, anyway, great having you on the show. Very, very interesting. It's a very different take than what we hear today. I have to say, we didn't even get into AI, but maybe next time. Thank you.
All right then. Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Carlo Rotella from Boston College.